Welcome to Positive Pulse. Take care of your mind. On this episode, we will be going over an overview and our personal stories of mental health. Enjoy! I guess my kind of personal story with mental health has always just been I've always kind of had anxiety and just overthinking things, especially academic anxiety. And I've just mostly over the years just been getting through it, kind of pushing it down and not really addressing it. And it really just came to a head last year, actually, around this time. I was just so overwhelmed with classes, especially my nursing classes were starting right away after syllabus week, and I just feel like I couldn't keep up with them. So I was just really struggling with those and just struggling mentally because I just felt like I was just not being able to get ahead. And so I actually decided to go to the student health center because I was having pain in my chest and stuff like that. And they didn't find anything physically wrong. And so we've eventually found that it was more thinking of anxiety. It started up when I was thinking of school. So I decided to go to this mental health center and just talk to someone about it. And I actually, when I went, I hated it so much. I hated talking to someone about it. And I just really didn't enjoy it at all. And then I actually was no, I'm gonna try it 2 more times, at least 2 more times, and I'll force myself to go and just talk about it, because I didn't talk about it with anyone, that kind of stuff. And I know it's never really talked about in my house. It wasn't forbidden to talk about, but it just no one ever did talk about it. So it was just hard. But I actually kind of enjoyed going after a few times. I really tried to open myself up to just talking, and I think it really helped just talking to almost this random person who just didn't know me, and just kind of could have an outside view of what was going on and just ways to help professionally in that sense. And so I continued that all through the last spring semester, and then I picked it up again in the fall semester. So it's been really good. I am on just a little just an anxiety med as needed, which helps supplement. But I feel like I figured out some fairly good ways to keep my anxiety down, which is good. And I actually think it's been a good thing. And I wasn't sure how my parents were gonna feel about it, especially my dad, but they've actually been fairly good with it. They asked me about it and stuff like that, and there's no negativity, which I'm glad about. And it's been a good thing.
Would you say you're since you have kind of worked on your mental health over the past what do you say year, you
Mm.
kind of really worked on it? Would you say that you've kind of felt more connected to yourself in a way, like you're able to find your self-identity or be closer to finding that self-identity? Kind of
I
in the
think
realm of
definitely.
our theme of the class.
Yeah, I think definitely it's given me a way to kind of reflect on myself and things that I need to work on, and just finding that way of stepping back and kind of seeing myself through a different lens and being able to kind of I feel truly connect with how I cope with things.
Mhm.
So that anxiety that I was feeling, I found ways to not make myself feel so anxious, and I've found coping strategies, and I've done things talking to a therapist, or going for a run. I like getting out in nature. Nature's definitely something outside is definitely something. I can feel the fresh air and just taking those deep breaths and stuff like that. And I feel like I've found ways that work for me, and ways that don't.
Mhm.
I don't love my family, love my friends. I just I couldn't talk to them about it. you know
Yeah.
that makes me very anxious because I almost feel they, want to help me, which I'm glad for, but it's like I don't want to put that on them. So I think like talking to the therapist has definitely helped, in a sense that like it's a professional who doesn't really like know me, and it's like they can help me professionally and stuff like that, and you know, yeah.
I definitely have struggled with anxiety too. I feel like it's really common with, well, at least I've heard with nursing students,
Mm.
um, that it's a big issue in that area and just college students in general. Um, I mean, I've taken a lot of like the steps that you've taken as well, and going to therapy and being on different medications and just kind of really evaluating and getting into what my mental health, like the state of it is. Um, and yeah, like I, the reason I asked you the question of like, does that make you like feel more connected to yourself or you have a better self identity is because um, I feel like like when we evaluate our mental health and start learning more about it and getting more in tuned into it, we're also better in tune to ourselves and are able to find either our true voice or just even a little smidget of a voice to kind of help us and guide us in our life. Um, no, but I've definitely I've had the same experience with you, Paige.
How long have you been like going to therapy and stuff like that?
It's been about 2 years, I want to say. So kind of about when college started for me, I felt my anxiety kind of coming like full drive in. And I noticed it was a big issue. So I had to take those steps and kind of help myself in a way to better my mental health.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a pretty common experience among college students. So, according to the CDC, 22% of college students have considered suicide in the past year. Um, and about 42% of students experience those persistent feelings of sadness, hopelessness, loneliness that can be attributed to a poor mental health state. I know for me personally, my, I guess, mental health journey started in high school. I was in a very bad place for a long time, I think. And I started therapy my freshman year of high school and then got on medicine about my junior year of high school. So it's been a pretty long journey, lots of ups and downs. But I think that ultimately the ability for me to tell others my story and to express the ways that I've overcome my challenges has been very helpful for my own well being, as well as helped other people get through stuff that they might be going through at the moment. Because I think it's not talked about as much as it should be, but most, I mean, I don't want to like say, give like a bad, I don't know, example, but I feel like most college students go through some mental health struggle at some point during their education. And it's just not talked about like I feel like it should. And Belmont does offer those counseling resources. I've tried using them. I know friends that have tried using them, but it's not always effective for some people. And I think that just opening a conversation where people are heard and their voices are taken into consideration is a really important thing in this new generation that we have of promoting mental health struggles.
With Belmont counseling, kind of like what did you feel like didn't help you? Because I feel like it helped me like a little bit and like definitely was like a start, for me. I didn't think it like cured everything obviously, but I'm very curious to like hear like what your story is.
Yeah, so for me personally, I have had some really, I guess, tough circumstances in the past. And coming into college, I was pretty fresh out of a really bad car accident that landed me in the hospital for a while. So some PTSD with that stuff, as well as just those struggles that I had had for such a long time with different circumstances I had growing up. Um, but I went to Belmont Counseling. I remember it very clearly. It was when COVID first hit, so it was virtual. It was a Zoom meeting I had with one of the counselors. And what she did was she sent me resources of how I can sleep better at night. And basically, what she said was, if you sleep better, you'll feel better, which I understand, and that's true. But um, ultimately, there was a much deeper issue that needed treatment. And I was very in a bad place. I was very unstable. And so just for someone to, I guess, hear my struggles and hear what I was saying to them and say, oh, here's how you can sleep better, was very disheartening. I understood that she did the best with what she had. I'm not mad at her at all. I'm not mad at Belmont. It's not anyone's fault. But I feel like preparedness for students in a crisis needs to be emphasized more in ways that don't jump to one extreme or the other, whether that be hospitalization or here's some pamphlets I can have you read. I think that a consistent therapy schedule is very important for a lot of students, and it's just not affordable in the United States at this time for many people. I'm very lucky to be able to afford that and have that in my life. But at the time, I just felt so, I guess, like it was demeaning almost to think that all of my struggles were boiled down to the one point of I should sleep better at night. And it was frustrating. It was, especially it was during COVID and nobody was coping with that time well. But I don't know. I gave it my best shot and I laid all of my issues out with a stranger, which is very uncomfortable to begin with. But I tried and it just amounted to like nothing pretty much. So it was very frustrating.
I definitely like hearing your story. It reminds me of just my experiences with Belmont Counseling. I never went to Belmont Counseling, like tried their services, but it was recommended to me. I ultimately decided not to go just because I felt like my issue was so way more in depth than they could really touch on. Like, I know they only offer services for like what, 6 weeks or something like that, like very, very short time. And I felt like I needed something like greater than that. And that really pushed me away from using college resources, and just because it's not structured in a way that I think would help probably the majority of college students. So did you end up like going to like a different, like finding different treatment for counseling or therapy or anything like that?
Yeah, so unfortunately, it got to a point where I needed pretty in-depth emergent treatment. So I did seek that out at the time, and have had a consistent psychiatrist, which is different from a therapist. He prescribed my medicines for a long time. And I just, broke down and asked him what I can do. I ended up in an outpatient treatment for a while. So I wasn't like a patient in a mental hospital, but I guess I was. It was outpatient, but it was a hard time and it was very lonely, and it would have been nice to have someone else in my corner, I guess. that understood and could advocate for me when talking to some of my professors. At the time, I was in nursing, and some of you have mentioned your struggles with the nursing curriculum, that being a source of anxiety and depression. And I understand that because that's where I was at the time also. But I felt like I had no one. And the counseling staff didn't really aid that. And I get they probably have to see so many students every day, and that has to be awful. But I think offering resources that like students don't have to worry about paying for, because Belmont's already expensive as it is. And I think one of the big issues is how expensive therapy can be for everyone, no matter what stage of life you're in. But offering ways that you can reach that won't be detrimental to your own, like, I guess, financial well-being or your ability to eat or have a place to sleep, all of that stuff, I think would be important. But yeah, for me it was, I didn't see them again beyond like 2 times, just because of how frustrated I was, because I was like, obviously I'm not sleeping at night, but I've tried everything that you're recommending, but you just keep recommending the same things over and over and over again. So where are we going now? Like, what's the point?
Yeah, it seems like it's just such a big issue with like colleges. Like it's hard to find, or I guess have, or they don't have a good structure on how to provide good services for mental health for students. And it is really, really frustrating. And I think that's part of maybe why the issue of why college students are having so many mental health struggles. So we just don't have enough resources, or the greatest, or even something that is, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but like we don't have the best resources that we could, or something that could even possibly touch on what we're wanting to work on with our mental health.
I think that unfortunately, some of the people that go into a college providing those counseling resources go in thinking that they're going to provide career counseling or guidance when you're stressed about what your future is going to look like. I don't think that a lot of their training revolves around, well, I guess it could. Again, I don't know, because I'm not a counselor for a college. I don't know what that is or what it looks like. But I feel like they are more geared to offer support when it comes to those life breakdowns, I guess, when you're stressed about your future or classes or whatever it will be. But when you come to them with something very serious, I think that it can be jarring for them as well. I don't think that they're all prepared for that or what it looks like.
If it's okay, I would love to share my experience because I relate to a lot of what y'all have talked about. So in my personal experience, I did Belmont counseling also during COVID, my freshman year, and the same situation happened where they were like, oh, you just need to go on walks more and stuff like that. And so that really discouraged me. I did it for a little bit, but then like took a step back. And I think that experience really shaped my view of therapy as a whole, just because there were like a lot of issues for me that were like undiagnosed and all of that. But I eventually went back to Belmont counseling my junior year, so like last spring, and it was fine. It was like the same, like it had to be within 6 weeks, and then they kind of just like left you off to your own, if that made sense. And so I had like no resources, and it took me months to find my own therapist who was like within my price range and who had availability, just because that's also a bigger issue. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's been such a long journey. I have a psychiatrist now and a therapist, and I just kind of wish that Belmont would have helped me more through it. And then like what you were saying, Sarah, about like hospitalization and stuff, I ended up in the mental hospital last fall, and I had a lot of teachers who weren't super understanding about that and were kind of like, they just didn't really give a lot of grace, which kind of is really disappointing to see, just because I feel like a lot of times it's not really taken seriously when it is a very serious thing, in my opinion. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of growth that could happen with student counseling and with like the education system as a whole on like providing more support to students, if that makes sense.
I'm curious, those of you that have said that you tried Belmont Counseling, did they tell you that you had this 6-week limit on your treatment? I'm trying to remember. I don't think that was expressed to me. It could have just been because I was kind of like in for the beginning and then I dipped. But I don't really remember anyone telling me you have 6 weeks to fix this issue, basically. And then you have to find counseling on your own. And then also, if you can speak to that, if they warned you about that or not, did they provide resources for affordable therapists for you all?
I don't really think so. I think the only help my counselor, like through Belmont, did was make me go on like Psychology Today and then kind of just like set up appointments and everything on my own, and didn't really follow up or like make sure that I had something lined up when we stopped meeting. So in my opinion, they didn't really help that much.
I think that's where it also gets sticky with like the scope of practice of these college counselors. I mean, I know there are colleges that do provide more long-term therapy and have kind of their own almost like mental health system. But I think that's where it's hard with the scope of practice is it is limited and it's more on a short-term basis. And I think it's more intended for like anxiety and depression is common, but it's on, a sliding scale. And there's kind of situational anxiety and depression that makes sense to happen in college. And then there are students who have, anxiety or depression or mental health things that aren't situational and that are deeper rooted and are going to take longer than a short period of time. And I think that's where, I've seen it with myself and friends using school counseling. I think that's where that barrier is of, I have friends who it is really situational of just like, oh, like college is harder than high school. And they found resources like that super beneficial because it was just situational anxiety and like figuring out how to adapt to college workload worked great for them. But I've also had friends who are like, oh, like I've struggled with this for like 7 years, like I need deeper. And I think that's where that gap is. And I think that's where it would be beneficial if schools were hired people that like their job was to just help students find resources and just like help with kind of navigating insurance and all of that to find resources. Because I think even if you're told you have the 6-week window, if you're in therapy or seeking counseling for a more higher acuity thing, I think it's a safe assumption that you're struggling enough with going and spending hours on the phone and with insurance companies is not necessarily the most practical. So bridging that gap to kind of like support students to find, outside care that can be more long-term and more comprehensive tends to be where like colleges and just more like short-term counseling centers versus like therapy tend to just have that gap. So then it kind of just leaves people feeling kind of up in the air and like, too tired to kind of do this. So I tried it. I'm just going to kind of keep going.
Yeah, so like I forget what it was. I know it's definitely like limited. The resources they were telling me, I forget if it's like 6 like weeks or like they're like a specific number of sessions. I know what I did last year when I started, it was after spring break, and I think I went almost every week, like once a week, for the rest of the semester. And then last semester I did every other week until the end, so like first part of semester to the end of the semester. So I don't know. I know it's definitely limited, but I forget the exact like number or whatever it is. I think like is definitely something that like is like almost like a baseline, like the first thing you could do, like just something to like start your mental health journey, because like the only thing I I felt like I got something out of it only because I was like speaking to someone, like I knew what my problems were almost, and just like I just needed someone to talk to that wasn't like directly like involved with my life. So I think that's where like I kind of got, something a little like better out of it than you did, Sarah, or anyone else. I think like for you guys who have like those like, you know, much more like worse issues that you guys need someone to like actually like help you. I think like it that Belmont's definitely not like the place for that. And I think like they do give you some resources. I know I was like, um they said something about like giving me like assigned like videos or things for anxiety, like I could complete on one of the, it was like Tao or whatever, online to help. And I know they said like there's the 24-hour therapist, like you can call them anytime, whatever, and you have someone to talk to, and then I think they'll like semi like tell you, oh, these are the therapists in the area, but I don't think they would help, like because I haven't gone to like an actual therapist, because like Belmont's just, it's free and it's just kind of like what I need in the moment. But I think they could definitely do better at like helping students find you know better therapists, especially for like their price ranges and stuff like that. And I think a lot of the therapists that you like eventually talk to are just like grad students that are almost like interns there, which is great, and they're getting experience. But I think also like they're just kind of like given this small scope and like when just graduating. But I think there are like definitely some places where they can improve and help people more get into that. And I think it's unfortunate that they don't check back in, like what you're saying, Isabel, like she didn't check back in to make sure you were getting your help that you needed, which should happen. But yeah, that's my experience.
Yeah, and I don't think the conversation is like aimed to take away from students that do benefit from these counseling resources that the university offers. I think that it's great that people do benefit from that, and I think that we should continue to provide those resources for these students that is what they need, that meets their need. And I think that's amazing and great. I think that a lot of it, though, in my perspective, my opinion, is just the lack of resources for students where that's not meeting their needs, where that's falling short for them, trying to kind of, I guess, advocate, voice for them the concerns of, I need more than this, and the university is not giving it to me. But not to take away from the students that is helping. I don't think that that's productive. I don't think that's part of the conversation. I think it's just adding on to what is existing so that it doesn't take away from anyone, but it makes up for lost coverage, I guess.
Also, we have 10. I put it in the chat, but we also have like 10 minutes till we have to start a new one, if we're starting. But I think everyone shared their personal stuff, right? That wanted to share. You're muted, Jasmine.
Still muted.
I'm sorry.
Good.
I said I feel like we got a good chunk of stuff like kind of going, so I don't know. I feel good about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good for like especially just episode 1. You know, that wasn't necessarily anybody's topic. You know, that was just
It's like a
talking.
brief overview, kind of.
Yeah, I think so. Get the ball rolling and stuff like that. Is there any like statistics that you wanted to also like? Because I know you threw one in there. Is there any other statistics you would like to share?
Yeah, so I'm on the struggle bus. I don't know what happened. My house, my Wi-Fi is not working. It's so fun and great for me. So I can't get to my Outlook, or I can get to my email, but I don't have access to my docs on my phone. But a lot of the research just suggests this gap in coverage, especially for students of different disparities, as we would call it in public health. That's different ways that people, or I guess different like characteristics that people can have that can affect their likelihood or their willingness or their ability to receive different health outcomes or treatments or whatever it can be. So some of the data suggests people that are LGBTQ plus fall short of that, people of color, people that are first generation college students. Some of the data suggested that women, especially back in like the early 2000s, were a disparity, but that has kind of lessened in recent years. So that's not really something that we're struggling with, I guess, right now. It's still different in different majors, especially like engineering, different STEM majors can have women falling behind. But in terms of mental well-being, women aren't as behind as we were before. So a lot of the big areas are those financial disparities and sexuality, identity, everything like that. I don't have the exact numbers. I can cover those in another episode, but right now, that's just part of the conversation, is that college students, it's a hard age to be at, and there's already a large number that just don't seek those resources out because it is seen as part of the college experience. That's just what you do at this age, and that's just how it is, but that's not how it has to be. So yeah, I guess in this age is when things start presenting, especially in males. Women start a bit earlier, about like 15, 16. But normally, I guess, a lot of people start feeling those burdens of mental illness around college age.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the stigma has become less of a stigma. I think people are still kind of getting used to it, especially, I think our generation's becoming better at trying to get people to go to therapy and stuff like that, which is, good, and just talk about it. But I think we're also almost got a ball and chain with the older generation, who still has that stigma in their mind that we don't talk about it. You don't talk about that kind of stuff. And I hope it's we're slowly getting better, and I feel like we are, but I feel like at the same time we are influenced by the older generation a little bit, because they're still talking in the ears of the younger generations as we're trying to navigate our ways. And I think women tend to be labeled as too emotional, so whatever their stuff is, they're like, you're just a woman, you're just being emotional, and you're brushed off in that way. And I think guys are also brushed off because they're you're a man, deal with it, push it down, grow up, and I hope we can continue keep moving towards it's okay, you can talk about your feelings, everyone's feels it and stuff like that. But I think this generation's doing a better job of it, being guys, everyone's feeling this, just talk about it. Sometimes it just helps to talk and get that help.
Yeah, and I think in the coming episodes, we're going to touch on different areas relating to mental well-being. I know that the next one that we have planned to cover addresses gender, can touch on sexuality in that one as well. But over the next few episodes, we will dive deeper into those different areas. This was just kind of a broad overview, so we will get more in depth as the episodes progress.
Yes.